Welcome back to Made Up of Wires. We are decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night again, as always. Maybe one day we won't decompile Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Maybe we'll do something different. But today, it's Symphony of the Night. If you want to know more about the Symphony of the Night decompilation project, you can go to soten.z.dev. That's Z with an X. And you can see the status of several of the overlays that we've been working on. We've been flipping kind of between the long library and the outer wall. I'm going to look at what's left in the outer wall today, and then go back to the long library. If you go to soten.z.dev, you'll find a link to Discord, where lots of people are chatting about decompiling Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and you can find a link to GitHub, where all the code that we've decompiled is available. I think I've cleared out my backlog of things that I've done on the stream and elsewhere that I haven't had checked in yet, with a few exceptions. So I think most everything that we've done here is checked in. One thing I wanted to note, which is amazing, I think, if you look at maybe time to 90%, 95% for something like the Marble Gallery, which was originally started in October, you're looking at right around the beginning of December or so. So maybe a month. I guess we're pretty close to that on N01 as well, compared to other overlays that were imported. Obviously, we're moving much quicker, and hopefully that can continue. And I mentioned, I think, probably back in November or December now, that I had some ideas for tooling to make it go even faster, and that's kind of been put on the back burner for the time being. But maybe I'll get back to it one day. All right, so last week when I left, I was struggling with some of the eShop, sorry, not eShop, the library shop. And first there was a big issue with splits, and then there was an issue with the shop inventory. And one thing that I wasn't considering at the time was that the shop is different between the PSP version and the PlayStation version, and so I had imported PSP version data, and that didn't work, and went back to shop-related data. And then had some regular expression issue, and I found the issue almost immediately after I shut down the stream. The issue was caused by a missing match group. So I had a match group, and that worked. I'm just realizing now that my window capture isn't updating, so give me 1 second while I fix that. That should be up to date now. So what we're left with then is a static array that contains the inventory, all the prices, categories, things like that. Based on some of the suggestions from MOTS, as well as through PR and other things like that, I added a new enumeration for categories in the inventory. And what we see down in the function that was decompiled earlier, part of what this function is doing actually is just converting from those inventory enums here to the equipment enums that we already have. And so that suggests that this is possibly what might have been done at the time that the game was written. Let me fix my browser capture as well, because that one was broken too. So the other thing I realized while going through this is that, like the inventory, I was assuming that this function that was being decompiled for determining which items are available to buy was shared between the PSP and the PlayStation as well. And I don't believe it is anymore. And there's a couple reasons why. And so it might be interesting to go back later and look at those, but I think they're different implementations, and they're different enough that I don't know that much can be shared at the moment. And I'll probably have to start a new decompile for the PlayStation version, since I was basing the original off of the PSP. And then there's one other function related to the shop that I know absolutely nothing about. It may or may not have this signature. This signature came from the decomp of this other function that's used for displaying and adding items and things like that. The other thing that was somewhat interesting, or that I found interesting anyway, about some of this shop code, I was looking to see what how well the logic was known for the shop. So there's certain things when we're going through and looking at these different categories. Basically, these items that are prefixed with an 8, they're all special cases which say that there's some prerequisite that needs to be in place for them to be unlockable or unlocked. And those prerequisites are here. And basically, every time you go through one of them, you get another point towards unlocking. And so one of those things is if we have, these are the scrolls here. If to get scroll 2, we have to have had either bought scroll 1 or perform the spell that scroll 1 is teaching the player how to do. But also, if you've done the spell, if you've done the key combo or button combo for the spell, those items will not be available to you. And they're just gone. You can't buy them from the shop anymore. And then the last thing was the duplicator. I had found different things about how to unlock the duplicator, and the comments I had seen basically said you have to beat the game to unlock the duplicator, and that is correct. And this is the condition that does that here. Time attack unlocked is the variable that we've named for one of the fields that gets set once you've beaten the game or have a save file that has a beaten game on it. And that sets this level to 8. And that is the level that is required for the duplicator. And your level has to be as high or higher, and there's no other way to get to level 8 shop unlock except for having the time unlock or time attack unlocked. The last thing is there is a $1 million or 1 million gold inventory item. It has an ID of 10, no unlock level, and has been given the category document. I have no idea what this is. It doesn't display anywhere. I've seen no documentation or reference or comments on a $1 million item. So if anybody knows what that is, comment, chat, let me know. I also haven't figured out why it doesn't display yet either. But we can keep going and see what else there is. So I'm going to go, like I said, I'm going to go back to outer wall and see what is left there. So I'm going to look for include ASM in N01. There's quite a bit. So Armor Lord, Were Skeleton, and Spear Guard. If you know the item number, can you change the item in your inventory? Absolutely. And the code for incrementing the item in your inventory is no different from, I guess the logic is no different from picking up the item, except that it will decrement it from the shop inventory if need be. But yeah, it's all except for the documents and the Jewel of Open Relic. All of the other equipment IDs are exactly what they would be if you pick them up. All right, so I had added some comments to N01. So let's see if any of that is still available. And we could look at some of the birds and other things possibly. So I'm going to look for one line after ARC was in my comment. That may have been with splits and other things. It's possible that my comments were lost. I know when I was splitting things, I obliterated some functions that were decomped as well and had to fix that over the weekend. Yeah. Or okay, let's look at these. All right, so let's see if this 8b00 function is still available. Okay, that looks like it's still there. So this is something in the ARC. We can play a little bit and find out. But for now, I will. I think this may be related to the birds. So somebody didn't like my ARC comment, it looks like. It's okay. Let's see, I want to copy. Oh, we're not looking at library N01, non-matching. We are in unknown 381E8. And so we'll go over to decomp.me and start work over there. Clear all these out. So we're going to start with the PlayStation and, if need be, move over. This looks like a relatively short function. I should actually look to see if this has been started. It actually has been started by me. It looks like one that I didn't commit, and that one has been done. So I need to get that checked in. Let's do that while I'm here. Okay, so we'll see if this still compiles. I probably will need a few of these. Awesome, that works. So let's see what else is in here. There's this one for something when entering Doppelganger's room. Um, so we talked a little bit about this in Discord on Friday or Saturday. This function down here was thought to have been related to the chair, but I don't think it is. It actually is a debug function that allows you to increment or decrement the animation state of something. I don't know what, but of something. And this is used elsewhere. And so we can look at that a little bit. It's a pretty simple function, and the majority of it can be included from um, a debug header file. Let's see what else is in here. I'll look at my comments again. So we have this 8430. I'll see if that one is started or done. Okay, that one hasn't been done yet, so we'll do that one next. Okay, so this has been identified as baby birds. And so we should be able to see, hopefully, the state machine for the birds. That would be kind of fun. See them go through their life cycle. This is really small, though. So it may just be the baby birds after they've hatched. In which case, it's just going to be like a function that increments the animation. Yeah. So pretty simple. But we can do that one quickly and get a little further. So I'm going to, any of these entity update functions are always going to have an entity passed in as the first arg. And I'll get the updated decomp, which should have all the fields. There is an init type. I don't know if I have that in my context, though. Doesn't look like it. There's other issues that I should deal with first. So we have, it looks like an array of 32-bit values. So this is an animation. So let me look at what that type is. I forget what that is. Animation frame is the type. All right. We have an issue. Anim is a size 8. So I'm not sure yet. I'm going to take a reference to this and see if that works. Otherwise, it's possible that this is a pointer to different animations, and we can fix that. Then I might try that first, because if this is an array of pointers, a lot of this should fall out, and it did. So I'm going to trust that that's what the type is. So there's a few of these that are listed as global symbols, but they need to be struct access. And then it looks like some ordering is the last thing. So in the original, Z priority is much sooner. Geonet common is not going to be a reference, it's just going to be the address of that array. So let's going to go through these. Offset 34 is flags, so let's move flags up. Offset 50 is animation frame index. That seems to come after Z priority. The entities, where is entities? Oh, here with the player. This BE00 is being loaded much earlier than it should be. Oh, let me thank you for that, the Highlander. The music should be coming through a different channel and not through my mic. That means my music is too loud for me to hear. How's that? All right, so we need to figure out what is causing this to be loaded out of order. There's a few things that that I think may be worth looking at. It's possible that this is being pulled into a separate variable before being assigned, and that might affect the ordering. It's also possible that some of these other assignments are out of order. So Z priority may be further down here. That pushes these way out of order, however. I'm going to look at, when this happens, I usually like to look at some of the other functions to get ordering, because usually they're the same. And so in this case, animation set before Z priority, animation frame index is not being set in this particular function. Oh, it is, after animation frame duration. We don't, yeah, those are the same, and we could put them on the same line like this as well. I don't think it's going to matter, but the PSP version might tell us otherwise. So the last thing is really this, why this final anim for the animation frames, why this is failing. I am going to go and see. No, it wouldn't make sense to take a reference to this because an animation frame is bigger than 32 bits, and based on the size from this shift left 2, we know that this is a 4-byte size, which is a pointer, likely. We could go look at that data as well and see. And let's do that just to confirm. So in Ana1, so we want the US version, STAna1 data. We should be able to see this. And if it's pointers, we'll have a bunch of symbols And yeah, that does appear to be what it is. So this is an array of pointers. So that is true as well. So the last thing I'm going to do, I guess, is pull out reading this this other value as a just an assignment to a local variable, and see if that changes anything. And it doesn't. I didn't really expect it to, but sometimes strange things happen. So something odd is going on with the ordering. I will actually try this just in case it has an effect on ordering. This is other code in this file is using the same idiom there. So we need to do something to force this value to be read later than it wants to be. I'm going to look at that as well. What I want to do is see what Splat thought this was. And this isn't... this looks like it may have been included in some other decompilation area. Oh, 3BE00 is not in. Okay, so 3BE00 is a variable that is not part of this overlay. It's part of one of the earlier ones. We'll figure out what that is by looking at config, and we'll look at one of the symbol tables. We'll actually look at a bunch of the symbol tables in for the US. It's not defined in the symbol table either. So let's look at, I doubt it's main, but I'll include it just in case. Let's look at DRA as well. It's not there either. .3BE00. Oh, okay. Another train of thought. So it's definitely possible that this is not the address specifically that we want to look for, but it may be related to an array or something else that is. And so we should look at that prefix and just keep peeling away parts of that address until we find something at that prefix. So I'm going to look for that in config, and that'll be in some of the US symbols again. Hey, Antoine, good to have you back. So these are castle flags. And so this castle flag likely is related to what life cycle these birds are currently at. So we want the one at offset E00. So let's go look at castle flags and see what their type is, and if we have symbols for that already. So castle flags is 3BDEC. So I'm going to take that. We want 3BE00. So it looks like we're flag 14, I think. So let's open the castle flags. And oh, isn't castle flags in here? Where is Castle Flags? Oh, it has its own header. I did not know. All right, so like I said, we want Castle Flag 14. We haven't found Castle Flag 14 yet. It's somewhat funny. Oh, somebody did. The N01 bird cycle. And oh, that's why that's why I didn't know, because this was just moved into this file. So we're looking at the N01 bird cycle. This could be pulled out into a symbol of its own, but I don't think that makes much sense, because nothing else is going to use this flag, so there's no reason to pull that out into the symbol table as a special symbol. So let's see if I have the other castle flags. These may have just been moved into an enum as well. So I'm just going to make this a define for now, a macro. And let's see if that worked. So yeah, that was what it took. And so the reason that this is being done later now is because we weren't just grabbing a value from an offset in memory, we were grabbing a value from an index to an array. However, that index could have been pre-calculated, and for reasons that I don't know or understand, it wasn't. It's only partially calculated. But that got us a match. So init common will not need nor Z priorities. The only ones we're going to need is the animation free. And so we can take that and I will need init common for it to compile here. I'll put that in the context because I can keep it for next time. So we're going to save. I'm going to mark this as match override. And then party time. And we'll go back, and I actually should delay party time until I have a match. A compiling match. And there we go. So one more done. So let's see how much is left. Did those two. I'm going to do a find on the rest of those. And we'll sort by size and just grab something of a nominal size. I didn't ls it. So a bunch of, these are just data. Usually that could be jump tables, it could be constant, like strings, things like that. Based on the consistent size, it's probably jump tables. So we have a few related to the Axonite and a few more in here that are bigger. We could take one kind of of a medium size. Smaller, medium. I think I will try to figure out what this is first, though. Oh, we'll try this one. See if there's any comment here. Oh, it's the first one in this split. So we have a function here related to birds, another function related to the birds. This one, 199, I believe, is also related to the birds. And so we may be able to split a new segment off based on those functions, but let's look at what's above here. Thank you, Cristiano. Appreciate it. Hey, Joe Rawlings. Good to have you. Joe and I worked together for many years. I saw him over the weekend by chance. So I'm going to go back and grab this function. I might, like I said, I might play a little bit to see if we can trigger that breakpoint and figure out what this function is, or approximately what it is. But I'll grab it first. Let's look at it, and then we'll play a little bit. So this, when destroy entity is near the top, it may mean that there's some state that we're looking at, and we're just gonna abort almost immediately, and possibly that this is a superfluous element, just something visual or something like that. But let's, like I said, let's see if we can find what it is, and then we'll go from there. I'm gonna pull up an emulator. Oh, my windows are broken. Every time I restart OBS, I have to reassign all the windows. There's a debugger. And there is a game. So in the debugger, the names that are automatically given to these functions are the offsets in memory that they'll be loaded to. So that is the breakpoint that I'm going to add. We are right, I am in outer wall, so we should be able to get there pretty quickly. And is this working? So this is maybe related to like the birds and the other things down at the bottom, but I'm not sure. So we have to go down and see if we can trigger this. If we can, good. Otherwise, too bad. We can still decompile it even if we don't know what it is. Yeah, so nothing yet. I don't know if we found the telescope. Orphis Flow says disassembling PS1 PSP is chill. Yeah, C is much more chill than C++, I guarantee. Cristiano saying, can you look inside the entity to see the type or ID of the entity, or maybe the coordinates? So there's a couple things we can do besides playing. I find playing to be slightly more fun than going through going through the data, but we can do that as well and see. So let me pause that, and I'll go back to... So if I can't trigger something, so this could be dead code, and there is dead code on the PlayStation version that we don't see on the PSP version, because the PSP has dead code stripping, and the PlayStation 1 didn't. So the other thing we can do is see where this function is called. And it's possibly that it is a helper function for something else. But let's see first if anything has been decompiled that has that. Otherwise, things that haven't been decompiled. Okay, so it shows up in this entity initialization list. I'll open that. So this is at the start of every overlay, and it is a array of all of the entities that are going to be used in this level, and they're offset by what we call an entity ID index. And so we can look to see what index this is. So it's at line 127. So it's entity ID 28. So then the thing is, can we find a call to create entity that is passing offset 28? If that's been, so has anybody found this already? We can look at the header file. Usually people are pretty good about adding entity IDs when they come across them. Entity ID 28 is going to be what? 1E? Is that, am I hexing right? One C, of course. Okay, so nobody's come across 1C yet. So then we have to look for some unmatched assembly that is loading O1C. And I don't see, so all of these are going to be offsets to a stack pointer, so not what we want. Again, either a register offset or stack pointer. So not that way. So there's a bunch of different ways then that this entity could possibly be loaded. It might be a bunch of other entities related to whatever this is, and there's just a loop, and the ID is computed. We don't know, so that's why I don't know. Sometimes playing the game is fun because then you can kind of see where things are and where they're going to trigger. I am going to do a little more. I'm going to go to the top. This doesn't seem related to the arc or the birds necessarily. So I'll go to the top and see if there's anything there that triggers it. And if not, like I said, we can decompile it, and sometimes decompiling it gives you enough information to tell you what it is. And it's possible that I won't find it all. Reduce the shield. That's awesome. So the way up is going to take a few minutes, but not too much. Damage boost. Again. So yeah, there was some discussion about the room that I was just in previously. So there's a chair you can sit in, and we spent a lot of time talking about that earlier, and decompiling those functions. And then there's another function that gets that does trigger a breakpoint around that same area, and it seems to be a debug function that exists in several of the stages. So much so that there has been that code has been pulled out into a header and can just be imported. Oh, I'm so low. Let's try it again. You saw nothing. Yeah, I'm not playing for the skills. Not a speedrunner. Oh, I lost my Medusa shield too. That was a good drop. Oh well. Too bad. And I haven't activated the elevator yet. There's not much more here. I wonder if anybody's found the hanging guy. So not that. The other thing that it possibly could be, the birds have a life cycle. It could be the birds as they grow. But yeah, a quick play doesn't uncover anything, unfortunately. So let's look at the code though and see if there's something we can do to find out what it is. So assembly is extracted to the ASM directory. Game is US. Stage N01, which is outer wall. Our current segment is this 381E8 segment, and I mentioned before whether or not this is it's a non-matching. Whether or not this is a reasonable place to split this or not. Oops, did I do the right one? 81E8, I did not. We won't know until we know what some of these things are. So then I'll go back over to decomp.me and we'll start a new scratch. Make sure I save that one. Paste in our assembly. My guess is that the signature for this is going to, well, it has to be, because this was in that entity list. These are functions that the game engine is going to be called, and the signature that those use is passing in an entity pointer. So we know that that's what the signature is going to be with a void return type. And that should give us a little more, a little better initial decompile. So this one is pretty straightforward. So the destroy entity check that or call that I was mentioning before, it's happening somewhere based on some state in the entity extension, and so we'll have to figure out what that type is. This go to block 10 is just the end of the switch. So I'm going to get this decompiling, and then we'll untangle, or get it compiling, and then we'll untangle that. Ginit common is always an array. Animation frames are also, they're either pointers or arrays. Actually, it'll be an array. And so then on line 7, what we have is some pointer in the entity extension that is itself pointing to another field at offset 2C. So we won't necessarily know the layout of that entity extension yet, but the 2C gives us a hint as to what field or what the type might be, what the pointer type could be. So I'm going to go over and look at game.h, which so the 2C offset I was thinking of was step. I couldn't remember what it was specifically, so step's not a pointer, so that kind of gets thrown out. The other place that there might be a pointer, a well-known pointer hiding, is in the primitive structure, but that is also not a pointer. So what we have is an extension that we don't know the shape of, with a pointer to something that we also don't know the shape of. Oh, actually, 2C, that is fine actually to be a step. I take all that back. So my guess is, and this is just a guess, we still don't know exactly what the shape of this entity extension is, but my guess is that it's a pointer to an entity, and so we're going to be pointing to the step field in that entity. So let's define that first. Usually for these unknown entities, we give an unknown name to what it's going to be. We don't know what the first 12 bytes are. So I'll put in some padding, and then we have an entity pointer. I should actually check one more thing before I assume that this is actually 16 or 12 bytes in. I guess it was offset 4. I'm going to assume that there is not. So M2C, when it's doing the initial decompile, often screws up on indexes because it doesn't look at the shape or the size of what that array is, and then so it screws up the index. Yeah, the Highlander, I was actually just thinking the same thing. So when I went through the first time, I could have sworn getting to the outer wall the first time, the tower was cloudy, and then playing through and trying to find other breakpoints, it wasn't cloudy, and then I beat Doppelganger, and then it was cloudy again. So who knows? So this is an unknown entity. And then we have this huge union for the extensions. How to do polymorphism in 1995. And we'll add our struct there. And that should get us close to compiling. Maybe if I didn't screw up the context completely. What did I do in the context? What did I do? No semicolon. No, I don't think I did anything that bad. Oh, entity is forward declared, so we can't use the type def. So we still have an issue at line 7. Did make this a pointer, yes. And that is my union. Name in the union, yes. Let's get rid of that, just to be consistent. Oh, I called it unknown entity, that's why. All right, so initial decomp gives us 85% match. There's a few things to clean up before going on. When we have a array symbol, we don't need a reference to it because the reference is the same as what the symbol is pointing to without that reference. Down on line 28, we'll get to this in a second, untangling this block down here. And the last thing is this GAPI update anim is going to be a field access for a struct. That doesn't change much, but it may or may not matter. So when we're going through the switch, we're going all the way through, and then we're falling through to the default case, and then returning. If we go to case 1, we're going all the way through, and then we're jumping back and going through the default case again. So this should just be at the end of our switch and not its own case, because in the default case we'll fall out of the switch. We can get rid of that goto, and that gets us most of the way there. We don't fall through here anymore on line 29. That is probably going to be what the rest of it is. And we have one issue here up on line 10, which I believe is, sorry, it was offset 10 in the original assembly. So I mentioned before, I didn't think that it was for 12 bytes in, or 16 bytes in, and I was wrong. Sometimes M2C does good. Good job, M2C. So I had that one off. And so now we're 99.88%, pretty good. The only thing missing is these immediate values. And like I said earlier, this is a global symbol that we use when we have this struct access, just to make it easier for us to find what that field should be. So even though it's wrong in decomp.me, it's correct. It'll be correct when we compile. So I'm going to mark that as an override. So we have 2 today so far. Maybe one more. We have 30 minutes. So let's take this back over and I closed my file. So we're looking at source, stage, NL1. This was unknown 381E8. This was the first function here. So we replaced the include ASM line with this implementation. And compile. I made changes to that entity extension structure, so we have to do that as well. So we'll load that. Off screen, I'm grabbing the struct that I made. And then we can look at the code a little bit and see what, if anything, we can tell about this entity. And it matches. All right, so we have another one. Let's go back to decomp.me real quick and just get a sense of what's happening here. Actually, there's a few things that I should have cleaned up along the way, getting rid of this temp v1 variable. Okay, and there's probably other things in here as well. So that position y being equal to itself minus something else should be a minus equals. And same thing. Oh, this already is a plus equals for position x. This is not a reference. We have macros for palettes. So this is OVL pal with 19f. If the palette is coming from the overlay, it's the first bit of that 16-bit value is set. Otherwise, it's not. Unknown 5a, we don't know what that is. And then I screwed something up. So now we're not matching. Oh, I don't have it was PAL OVL. Yeah, PAL OVL. I got it backwards. So that's a better version of the function, and I'll import that before I send that up here. Anyway, going back to what we are. So we start, these are all state machines. We're going to start with step 0, initialize our entity. We're setting basically, so it's something that's moving has a velocity. These are SOTN fixed values, which are different from PlayStation fixed values, which are different from floating point, but kind of the same idea. They're all real numbers. So we have an animation. We have a both x and y velocities. The x velocity, it's not used initially, but yeah, eventually it's used. So the initial position of an entity comes from some of the initialization data that I'm not going to look at the moment. And then it just, yeah, kind of continues on its course, kind of a diagonal course until its animation is finished. So we've looked at the barrel thrown by the skeleton. I'm trying to think of what else moves at a angle. It's something that's falling at an angle. Well, if you have ideas, chat or comment. And we'll move on to something else. So let's stay in this file. It looks like the next biggest here is 81E8. Is that what we just did? That was what we just did. So the next is B4C0. I'm gonna copy that, and then we'll try to find out what this is. I think it's a little more fun to know what what it is that a function may or may not be doing. So I'm going to do the same thing, looking to see whether or not, excuse me, if this might be an entity. So it doesn't show up as, oh, I'm in the wrong file, that's why. So it's another entity. So I will add that to context. And yeah, another relatively short one. Very similar. Basically, we're looking for some other... there's some timer that's being triggered. And once that timer expires, we're going to go to the last state in the machine. And basically, when the animation is over, then this entity gets destroyed. I'm going to take that and add a breakpoint, and we'll try to find that one. So I'm at the top. I'll just work my way down, and if it's not in this main tower area or the arc, then I'll come back up and go to the doppelganger room. I think the elevator has been found. Not quite sure. And I also think that I would have been close to any of those guys to have them load in while going down the elevator. I should look though to see if the elevator has been found, because that would be fun to look at as well. Oh, one thing I did. Shoot, I didn't think about it. There is a not on this side. I think I might have a save state that still has this knight. There's a knight here that once destroyed doesn't come back. Let me load my other save state in this area. Possibly he's not. This is prior to the doppelganger fight. So the knight's there. So I think that's his battery of attacks. And none of that is triggering. I went through most of the doppelganger area as well. Nothing triggered there either. Oh, let me enable the other one now that we're here. What is in the background? Oh no, that's not that. I was hoping that that velocity was enough to possibly be the other entity, which would have been the rain then. And just to check the telescope once again. And it doesn't look like that. Oh, it is something. Okay, we hit something. Let's, what are we hitting? We're at whatever this new function is. It is something down here. I'm gonna The fish? Is it the fish? Oh, come on. Let me look at the... Let me look again. Why can't I trigger this now? Okay, so we zoomed in on the ferryman, and we started hitting this breakpoint, and slowly getting through every possible frame. It is possible that it is something that just gets loaded in when you get closer to the boat. I would very much like it to be the fish. Oh, the fish weren't there, though. Cristiano saying there was a random, and maybe it's selecting the animation. Yes, that is definitely possible. And so, let's look at this. I'll take the debugger away. So looking at this code, we have some field, and again, we don't know what that field is. That field, though, the offset is being used down here, and it's decrementing, and then that decrement is being checked against 0. So I'm pretty sure this is a random timer, and not an animation. I thought you could trigger the telescope multiple times without leaving, but maybe I'm wrong. I'll try to go off screen and do it again. Nope. Let me enable it one more time. I didn't see the fish that last time. Okay, triggered. There's a fish. There's only one of them. Maybe it's the number of fish. I don't know. Well, we'll see. I do think it's it's fish related. So let's work on that and see what we can find. About 15 minutes, and I think we can get through this. So an entity is going to be an array of unsigned 16s. We do have a few things. Animate entity. That is a function that is in any of the overlays. And it has a signature of that. So the first part of that signature is the frames to be animated, and then what entity is being animated, and the entity itself is what keeps track of what frame is currently being used. And then it looks like, since this is the first argument to animate entity, it also will be a array of frame offsets. And the last one is this F8. And let's look at this and see what these values are. And that should tell us maybe. Give us a better idea of what these might be. So looking at ASM, there's so much compared to some of the other stages that I've worked on. So it's either 20 or 18, 20 hex, so 32 or 24. Those are shorts. Let's assume that they're signed for now, and then if we see something else, we'll fix that. So it compiled, and then I don't know what that means. Okay, so this is an array. We need to get rid of a bunch of stuff that is not necessary. So it is a call to random, but we don't need to multiply by 2. And oh, this was too easy. 32. We're not checking against 0 directly. We're just treating it as truthy. Nope. All right, so what is causing the mask? So V0 is a register used for return values. It can be used just as temporary data. No, it was equal to 0. So what is causing this mask? Animate entity. This is my guess, is that animate entity is actually not declared. And so it's using the undeclared signature, which returns an int and not an unsigned 8. And then the mask is not necessary because the comparison is already against a 32-bit value. So the last thing then for this function is, again, another entity extension. I am going to, let's do 2 things. Let's make the entity extension, and then I'm going to build without this function and see if we can tell what disappears from the telescope, and see if I can get that working in a relatively short time frame. So what are the things that we need? This is just about everything. I'm going to leave the illegal extensions in for now. I'll just go straight forward with the trying to modify the ROM. So there's a couple ways that this can be done. I found that this way, the way that I'm going to show now, actually works pretty well. Let's make sure that this compiles first. So this is a match. I am going to add all of this to my stash, and then, or stage it, I guess is what I'm doing. There's a few things in here that need to be cleaned up. What I'm going to do instead of any of this is I'm just going to return immediately. And so the entity will never be initialized. The animation will never be called. The timers will never be run, anything like that. And so whatever that was in the telescope shouldn't be there. So I'm going to make a disk. And this gets a little tricky, but should be fine. I need to copy this over. And I forget where I was copying these earlier. So the way that I have been testing some of these changes is I'll build a new bin queue pair, and then I load those, basically replace the disk in DuckStation, and then leave the area and reload this file by re-entering the area. And that seems to work pretty well. I need to make sure that I'm not loading it to somewhere that might be cached by DuckStation though. So in System, you can go to Change Disk, and I'm going to find this wherever it was that I copied it over to. And so when you're in the stage is loaded to memory. You can't make any changes directly to that. But when I leave and come back, that file is reloaded. And the way that we can tell if this worked is by looking at the debugger. And the debugger will tell us basically what has changed. And so my offset was this 801BB4CO address. I am going to trigger that one more time just to jump to that area of memory instead of trying to find it. Oh, I did something. The ferryman was gone. All right, so we're in the debugger. We're at that location. What's going to happen? I'm going to remove the breakpoint. When I leave the room, this memory might change. But when I come back, basically, DuckStation has snapshotted this, the dump the way that it currently is. And when I come back, we're going to expect that to be different. And so I need to find a red door before I get killed. Not that way. And so we'll see. So this is the CD loading room. When you get to a certain point here, the next stage is going to load. And we see in the debugger how all of those values changed. Except for the ones that didn't, because they happen to be the same. And so now we go back through, and because this is a different disk, yes, the values are different still, right around the point where I made that change. So now going through and looking at that, fortunately I didn't get a good sense of, since the ferryman was gone, if the fish were gone too. But let's see. Oh, the ferryman is back. And there are no fish. I'll try it one more time just to make sure. That looks reasonable. And then for science, I will load the retail disk back. And do the same thing. Maybe tomorrow, I mentioned that we have all the library inventory now. The randomizer community is big on changing that library inventory. And I have done a stream like that before, showing what, with the source code, what we can do that the randomizer community is already doing just through hex editing. Our stage is loaded back with the original version again, so everything is white. And we should see fish. No fish. Oh, no fish! One more time. This doesn't prove anything though, because if it's random... Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, that's all I got. Why? Who knows? Who knows? That's part of the fun of decompiling. You don't know what you don't know. And whatever it is that is causing this entity to load, I will, let me do one more thing. I'm going to put that breakpoint back on. I just want to see if it's getting triggered. I should have done that with the custom disk as well. It is triggered. But there was a fish. I want to have it triggered without a fish. Triggered. Fish. Triggered. Two fish. No boatman. Triggered. Fish. The other thing that may be worth considering is how long the fish is being animated for. That would require a bit more than I'm set up to do at the moment. Basically wanting to see if it's 32 frames or 24 frames of animation. No fish. So it triggered with no fish. Okay, so I don't know. So it's something that may or may not be fish. Who knows? So I'm going to go through. There's a couple things to do here to clean up before I would consider this finished. I do want to go through and create this entity extension. I would have liked to call it entity fish, but I can't do that now because I don't know that if it's the fish or not. And so we're going to do something very similar to the last function. Create a new struct, add it to this union. And what I want to see before giving this a name, this looks like a timer, and this is basically the standard idiom for timers. So this timer is at offset 6, it looks like. Let's look here. No, offset 8. Yeah, that's a good point, Cristiano. I just took a relatively aggressive approach, but yeah, doing something like changing, forcing this random value to not be random is definitely an option. I don't think I have time to do that today. But yeah, that is worth looking at. Looking at the should have looked at this as well. Sometimes context can give you a lot. Likely the fish function. So somebody else who wasn't me thought this was the fish function. So going back to the context here, I'm going to call this, I'm going to call it entity fish. And it looks like offset 8. So we have how many? 3 16-bit values before our 16-bit timer. The timer is unsigned. I'm not going to put the offset. I think that should be fine. So let's rename this down here. So we're going to set the timer in this entity extension. And then down here we have a bunch of code, temporary variables and everything. Shifts and comparisons to 0. This is going to become pre-decrement and then implicit Boolean comparison. I said it's going to become pre-compiler. This was unsigned, right? Now, usually timers are done in that style, but I am not matching. So the shift here is because this is a 16-bit value. It's being promoted to 32 bits. And it looks like, though, my error may have come long before that line, and I just wasn't watching. Yeah, so fish timer works up here. I'll call these fish timer. Those all work. This shift. Oh, duh. This should be a knot. And is that gonna work? Still not working. I really would like to get rid of that. Temp B0. But not today, I guess. So temp B0 will rename to timer. Very different from other areas with timers. So we can do set timer to, let's try this. Actually, thinking about it a little further, that may imply that this is not a unsigned, but a signed value. So I'm going to try it one more time with using a signed timer instead. There we go. That was it. I should have thought about that earlier. So for a 16-bit value, signed bit is going to be the top bit when comparisons are done. They're 32-bit comparisons. So shifting that over by 16 bits allows you to keep the sign up cheaply without having to do a full sign extend. And since the comparison is just against 0, we don't really need the precision of what other data is in there. So now we can get rid of all these other ones. So we got some fish. And that's where I'm going to end it today. If you want to know more about the Symphony of the Night decompilation project, go to soten.z.dev and you can find more information, including the progress of N01, the outer wall that we've been working on today. Nearly done. And also the long library, which is the latest overlay to be added and have people working on. And all the other things we've been working on. If you think you are interested, join us in Discord, join us on GitHub, and I'll be back tomorrow doing more decompilation. If there's things you want to see, let me know. I do think it would be interesting, like Cristiano said, to change that function a little bit differently, and so maybe we'll do that tomorrow. Do some minor modding and see how that works. But that's all I have for you today. Adios.